Hello and welcome to the Modern Healthcare Lab podcast, bringing you conversations, ideas, and practical strategies to help you thrive in your healthcare career. To kick off today's conversation, here's your host, Diana.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of our podcast, The Modern Healthcare Lab. Today, we are discussing website accessibility and occupational therapy. With me is Melissa O'Neill, who is a licensed occupational therapist with experience across clinical and community-based practice, supporting individuals and families through a wide range of occupational performance needs. She is the founder of the Postpartum OT and co-founder of Acmer Marketing, which is a company focusing on improving equitable access to healthcare information and services through accessible, functionally designed digital environments. Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk about this.
I would love to start with your story. What brought you into this space of combining occupational therapy with digital accessibility work?
I would say it's a combo. So, like you said, I've owned the postpartum OT. I'm the founder of that. And so I built out my own, like worked on building that stuff that you need for a business, websites and all of that. And then my husband is an engineer, and we ended up finding ourselves really passionate about launching a marketing agency. And as we launched it, I started to think about how things are not built with an accessibility focus, how things are just built to look good and get it out there, but they're not stopping and thinking about, can people really use it? And so that's when I started to dive deeper into it and watching like questions people were asking, comments people were making, and thinking, we need to make an impact in this space. Like, I want to make the digital world like the physical world, where in the beginning, before you even start building a building, those pieces are part of the foundation. How is it going to be accessible for somebody with a differing ability to get in here? A wheelchair, braille, all those different pieces. The digital world should be the same. It should be built from the foundation up, thinking, how are we going to make it accessible for those people accessing this that are living with differing abilities? And you build it into the foundation, and then you continue to grow as you learn more and make it even better.
When did you first start to see websites, not just as digital tools, but as occupational environments where participation can either happen or break down?
Honestly, it would be shortly after my husband and I started Egmer Marketing, where that occupational therapy side of me started thinking about, what about those people with different abilities and how are they going to use it? And I have a really dear friend who, she's legally blind. And I started thinking, and she is also colorblind. So she can see enough that she could hold something really close or zoom into it and be able to access it to a certain extent, but a lot of things she still can't access if it's not built correctly for her. So every little thing that I started learning, and still that I'm still learning, I continue to like, oh, we could make this better, and oh, we can make that better. And if we made it like this, it would support this individual. So it's, for me, it's even a continued process of learning, how can we change this digital environment? We're not going to change the people. How can we change the environment to support them? Because we live in a day and age where we spend so much time on the internet, searching for things like like in Zoom calls, whatever it might be. We spend so much time in the digital space. So it should be built to serve these people.
When you observe someone, as in this case, struggling with a website, what's the first notice from an occupational therapy perspective? Do you first notice the person and what they need, or the environment, or that interaction between them?
To be honest, I haven't actually sat and observed someone struggling with accessing a website. It's been more so what I hear from people that are living around me, living with differing abilities, from certifications that I've taken, from knowledge that I have from people that I've worked with in Special Olympics, etc. In a recent certification that I completed, it was the Certified Disability Rights and Accessibility Consultant. They mentioned that, like, two good points that I feel like will stick with me forever. You can try to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Let's say somebody who's living without sight or somebody who's living without hearing, but you can never truly understand what they need because you don't have those lived experiences. So that's where we need to pull in that person and understand their lived experiences so that we can better support them through their voice, not through what we're imagining that they might be dealing with, but through what they're truly sharing with us. And then we also need to think about that environment and the interaction between the two of them. And how can we make, I think I said this a little bit ago, how can we make the environment support them? We don't need to change them. We need to change the environment to support them. And then the other thing that they said was that you can have two people living with appearing to be the same disability, but they're not, more than likely not ever going to have all the same needs. Because, I mean, just like you and I, like, we have different ways that we take things in and process things. They're going to be the same way. So it's not just, oh, I met one person living without sight, and now I know exactly how to do everything for everybody living without sight. So I think it's that continued piece of learning so that we can put them both together to support the person and make the environment support the person.
And it makes me think about your opinion in something that in healthcare websites that looks functional on the surface, but actually creates immediate breakdown in participation. So, have you noticed something from this perspective?
I would say it's not just healthcare websites. Most people, like I mentioned earlier, aren't building with an accessibility focus. So you're building from what you think is functional and what we think is functional, what we think is usable from our own personal lived experiences or the people that we've learned from. So I don't think it's ever that people build a website intentionally leaving people out. It's something that we don't realize that we're doing. So I have the dear friend of mine who lives with um like legally blind, basically. I sent her a website the other day, or it was about a month and a half ago. And I was like, hey, can you give me your thoughts on this? Because I feel like it was something somebody wanted us to do some editing on. And I was like, I feel like the font is too light against, because they had a white background and I just felt like it wasn't dark enough. And I was, because it passed the accessibility standards, but I just didn't think it was good enough. And so she looks at it and she said, I didn't tell her that. Well, actually, sorry, I didn't tell her I thought the font was too light. I was like, I just want your feedback on this website. And she came back and she said, I can't really read that gray font very well. And I was like, exactly what I thought. Even though it was okay according to standards, it wasn't really okay for the actual user. And so I think that that is a piece that we have to take into account, that we really need to be thinking about our users or our potential users that are going to be landing on our website and within our space.
No, that's a great one. I just love how you and I think it's somehow from occupational therapy that we're really focused and the person, and then very practical to just create solutions, making it very simple and very direct to practice. It leads me to the other question of if we apply a model, person, environment, occupational model, where do you most often see the breakdown happening in digital environments?
Mm, I would I would really say that it's a variety. It's that not really thinking about even the simplest thing like color contrast, um, or what font you're using. A lot of times, um, we need to be able to step back and think about the people that are using our site. But like I mentioned earlier, it's hard for us to put ourselves in their shoes because we don't know what they've truly lived with. And so even going back to that really good friend of mine, she's when I was talking to her after she looked at that site, she said, anytime I can't use somebody's website, I just leave and go somewhere else. And I was like, wow, like she just leaves and goes somewhere else. She's not going to tell you, like, hey, I couldn't use your website because I couldn't read the font, or the contrast was not good for me to be able to take it in. She's not going to let you know. She's going to be gone. And so I think that that is where the biggest breakdown is that we don't truly, it hasn't been a focus for us to truly understand and build with these people in mind. And so we don't truly know what we're missing in the process of building a website. We just think, build one, it'll be great, it's fine, I can do that really quick, that's awesome. But we're not stopping to think about those people that need us to build it with them in mind.
Coming from your experience, what does digital participation actually look like in the real world for the people you have worked with?
I would say it would be kind of different for everyone. Like I mentioned earlier, that you could have two people living without sight and they could both use it in a different way. And so that's what we just have to keep in mind. So I know in the physical world, they're building with the best case scenario overall, right? For potentially the best use for anybody living with a disability to be able to access the location. So that has to be our goal in the digital world, to build with the best case scenario so that people can use what we're offering, right? So they can get access to our services. And so I know with my friend, going back to her, she's actually starting her own business and she's having us build her website. And every time we have somebody build a website, or we build a website for somebody, we ask them to send us a couple sites that they love, just so we kind of can get a better idea of their feel outside of the questions that we ask. And she sent our website. And we were like, why did you send our website? And she said, because I can read it better than I can read most websites. I don't have to zoom in more like I do most websites. And the color contrast is good. And I was like, okay, I love that makes sense because that's what we want to do for people. It's not always so much about, yes, we want it to look nice, but it's more about that functionality that our users can use it. And not just thinking about people who are living with a disability all the time. We have temporary things that we deal with where you could go in and have a surgery and you could need websites to work differently for you. We have the aging population, right? That they're slowly needing more and more support. So building with all of that in mind is so important.
Very beautiful perspective. And I'm thinking what cognitive demands in digital environments are most underestimated. Uh, is it attention, memory, decision load? Is it navigation? So, what is something that might be missed by many digital environments?
I think I would be torn between decision load and navigation. But I think first I would probably lean into the decision load. They need to know what are they supposed to do next really easily. How are you going to help me? And even your buttons being really descriptive and not just saying click here. You're telling them, like, why are they clicking there? What is happening when they click on that button? So just making it really easy, even for people that are using a screen reader, so that they know, like, oh, that's why I'm clicking this button. Yes. Or for people who have cognitive differences, or that are maybe living with some like neuro differences or something, that we're making it really easy for them to not have to think more and try to process more, because that's going to cause a lot of overwhelm. And they could end up leaving, kind of like my friend said she does, and going somewhere else because it was just too much for them to process. So keeping it simple, and then you can build into more detail as they click places and they want to learn more. Um, Simplicity, I think, is just the biggest thing, which I think helps with navigation, attention, memory, and the decision load. Like it helps with all of those. And then having that a lot of times when you build, not a lot of times, all the time, when you build with that accessibility focus, it supports all of those things because you're building for people with disabilities or living with differences. So that means that you're building in a way that is supporting that simplicity, that clarity, that ease of use.
You mentioned before the case when even the website passed the accessible test on papers, it was still some things that they were missing. And I'm thinking about what are the sensory or visual designs that might silently exclude users, even when these websites are considered accessible on paper or in these tests.
Yeah. And I think color contrast is one of those big things where you can pass accessibility standards, but just be on the lower end, which means a lot of times if we're looking at people who are needing that contrast, it's not working for them because we just barely passed. And so it's better to try to find those color contrasts that are meeting the standards at a higher level because that means you're serving people at a higher level, that they're more likely to be able to read what's happening on your website and access things because you're not just barely meeting the standards. I think even things like font, some of the fonts can pass and other fonts can be like just too close together, or just the way they're shaped and could be harder for people to read. So it's those pieces that can be fine on paper, but when you really work with people and better understand what people need, it needs to be a higher level to have like truly support their use. Even simple things like giving an image description. A lot of times people will upload an image on their website and it's just labeled like JPEG 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, what when you have it downloaded on your computer. So giving an image description so that when a screen reader is reading it or somebody using other technology, that it will tell them what the image is. That way they can actually take it in, like through the wording. So I think those are some simple things that you don't really think about until maybe you actually need it.
How do motor or physical limitations show up in digital tasks, like forms, navigations, or maybe even booking care in ways that people might overlook?
For me, that the biggest thing would be the ability to tab through your website so that somebody who doesn't have the ability to use a mouse, that they can just use the keyboard to navigate your website. And there's going to be sometimes, obviously, that people don't have the ability to use a keyboard, so they would adapt differently to that. But there's a lot of websites that you can't access just using a keyboard, which means that you're only serving people using a mouse, right? So I think that's one of the biggest pieces of website navigation, thinking of people who have a motor or physical limitation.
And I'm thinking from occupational therapy perspective, since we always focus in daily life and getting the most of life for everyone, what are the real world consequences when a website or specifically a healthcare website is not accessible? What does that look like in someone's daily life?
For me, the biggest thing is that people wouldn't have access to your care, that they might move on to go somewhere else, just like my friend says she does. And you could be the most perfect fit for that client to support whatever they're needing, but they'll never know and you'll never know. And so I think that that is the biggest consequence. not only could it, let's say, like, I guess the second piece of that is it could be impacting your business. Because in the United States, 1 in 4 people live with a difference. So that means you could be missing out on 25% of the population that you could be serving because your website is turning them away because they can't access it.
Do you think the digital environments should be considered part of occupational justice discussions in occupational therapy? Is this something that we need to embrace and discuss about in our profession?
100%. I think that it should be common that the digital environment should be thought of just like the physical environment so that we're not excluding anyone, that we're not expecting the person to change who they are. We should be adapting the environment to support them. The digital environment is like the more I look into it, it's a massive barrier to participation. And that's the whole goal is that we want these people to have equal participation in, living their lives. And so I think that it should be like that is my goal, honestly, is that everything is built with that foundation online just like the physical world. I want everything in the digital space to be built with that foundation. And then we just continue to learn and expand and make it better with time.
Where do you see occupational therapy fitting into the future of digital systems?
So I think it's a combo. So for me, excuse me, I think like doing consulting is really big and really learning, getting out there and learning more about the user and how they need things to be built for them. But then also, my husband, he is the engineer. So we live in completely opposite worlds. So he's the one that's able to kind of not kind of be able to create that design and thinking about all the letters that I he doesn't understand all my occupational therapy terms and acronyms and stuff. I don't understand his JavaScript and whatever, all the CSS and all the things he says, but that's how he can make my visions and the things that I learn about from other people come to life in the digital space. I personally don't have that knowledge because it's not my education, nor is it my interest to build like that, but he does. So that's where I think as an occupational therapist, maybe some of them do have that coding knowledge and that ability to build like that. Or it can just be coming together with other people who do have that coding knowledge and that ability to build and telling them, like, hey, this doesn't look right, or we need to change this, or we need to adapt this to make it more functional, where we can partner with other people, which is kind of what my husband and I have done. So I think that that's kind of the same with occupational therapy, is to use the knowledge that you have, but to also consult with other people and create that awareness and that knowledge so that we can change the digital world.
There is one shift in how occupational therapists think about digital environments. What do you think would be most meaningfully to change the practice?
I think that it would be sharing what you've learned from other people, because I can only know so much and learn so much. But if somebody else is able to come in and say, hey, Melissa, I learned this from somebody that I was working with, that only helps us get better, right? And so I think that is that continued learning, the true listening to what people need and how they're using things, and sharing the knowledge with others so we can only make it better.
And now I have some closing questions, which I really love to ask. And the first one is one word that describes occupational therapy.
This is hard.
Is
I
that
feel like
possible?
I know. I feel like I would have to go with this is really there's so many. I feel like I have to go with observation. It's like we're really taking in how people are using what they need and how we can help. There's a lot of words. That's a hard question.
It is a very broad profession with everything, but this is the beauty of it
Yes.
because I really want to get about from the people who really live and dedicate their times in occupational therapy then how does this whole life be described in only one word? That's observation. That's beautiful. And what's a book that has influenced your thinking?
So I don't really have one specific book. For me, I find that I enjoy more so listening to webinars or taking a certification, just like I took that. I finished that new certification just last week. And so for me, that's where what I enjoy the most is where can I find something and apply it and make things better. So that would be my answer. I don't have a specific book that I am like, yes.
So it's like continuous learning.
Yes, where I'm like, "Oh, that was really good," and then I'm kinda like, "Oh, what's the next thing?" Sort of, but there's never really been anything that I would just like, "That's the one." It's just bits and pieces from different things that I feel like come together that I enjoy.
And what is a daily habit that contributes to your success? I'm pretty sure
For me
they might be many.
Yeah, for me, I would say 3 things. So, um, for me, it's waking up and having my time of daily prayer and Bible reading, but then that continued learning piece is where like thinking back to what I said earlier, in this episode about how we can try to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes, but we can never truly understand what they need because we don't have that lived experience. So that learning from people. How can I support you? How can I make this better? What are your challenges with this that we could change to make easier for you? So I think that would be the biggest thing is have a habit of always learning how we can support other people and how we can make their lives better.
I have the last question for today. What is one innovation in healthcare or technology that you're most excited about over the next 5 years?
For me, since I'm living in this digital world, this digital space, it would honestly be watching it change to where it becomes more commonplace that we're building like the physical world, we're building the digital world with these people as the foundation and with them in mind. Uh, that is like the most exciting piece of technology that I think about. It's not just websites. It's how are these people using Zoom? How are they using Google Meets? How are they using other connecting platforms? Are they built to support them? How are we creating our presentations? Are we keeping them in mind when we're creating a presentation or when we're teaching something like all that stuff? I'm excited for it to become more commonplace that they are the foundation. 'Cause it only supports everybody else.
Thank you so much. This was very beautiful, very insightful conversation. I'm very grateful that we got to do this, and thank you so much for dedicating your time and sharing your knowledge with all of our audience, whoever will listen to this episode of this podcast. I very much enjoyed it, and I always enjoy learning from you. And thank you again that you dedicated your time to this session today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love sharing about this. It makes me excited.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope you feel more ready, set, and connected. For more, visit ReadySetConnect.com.